Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem video. This is postmortem for my Blitz game number 7, where I played against Alex82 from the US. And in this game I played an English opening. We'll take a brief look at the opening book here. Played c4, he went knight f6. I went g3, you can see if we back up. g3, not the most common response to knight f6. You can continue with d4 and get into traditional lines, or knight f3 or knight c3. Maybe knight c3 is more in the spirit of the English, but I was trying to get this kind of reverse dragon set up. And he played d5, also an unusual move. So if black plays e5, that's the reverse Sicilian. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Lots of possible moves here, e6, c6 to blunt the bishop. Logical choices also g6 and c5 going into symmetric, but d5 directly challenging my pawn on c5. And I played d4 here, thinking I was switching into some kind of queen's gambit system, but actually it's not. What I was sort of missing out in this part of the game as I was thinking about the opening is he hasn't played either c6 or e6, which would be the normal moves if this had been like a Slav defense or a classical defense to a queen's gambit declined. Those moves would be in. He hasn't played those, and so that gives black some additional options and means when I play d4 here, it's probably not the right idea at all. So in the opening book, it says you can play bishop g2 or knight f3, and I think knight f3 is maybe the right idea. You want to put a clamp on this e5 square, and you'll see that. After I play d4, the most common move is e6, but he takes. And again, if he had played e6, we'd be switching into familiar channels. So he's keeping things out of the mainstream by playing d takes c4, which can be a good thing. It's can throw your opponent off guard, and it's not a bad move at all. I looked at this with the engine. The engine prefers black through most of these variations. But here, sort of my last chance to get back into a reasonable opening would be to play knight f3, putting a clamp on this e5 idea and supporting my pawn. Instead, I play bishop g2, and we're out of the opening book altogether. So I'm going to go back. Oop, not that way. I'm going to go back to the notation. We'll just look at the moves as they're played. He played c5. Yeah, so my last move here was just bishop g2. And yeah, I was just continuing with my setup, not quite sure what black was doing there. And he plays c5, which challenges my d pawn. And that's a good idea. Like I said, the computer kind of prefers black all through these things. If I take, then he can exchange queens and give me ruin my castling privileges. That gives him a slight advantage. I went ahead with d5. He continues the e6, attacking the pawn, and I push a pawn to support it here. I don't want to exchange. I don't want that to open up, and I don't want to lose castling privileges there. So we continue like this, bishop d6, and I play queen a4 check. So up to this point, the computer thinks black's a little better, but basically we're in the plus or minus even category, not too far from even. But queen a4 is a bit of a mistake, and the way to stay even here is to play knight a3. And this is one of those ideas. Let's just draw it. Knight a3. So one of those ideas, it's an unusual move because you think, well, the knight's probably going to c3 or d2. Those are the typical squares. But every situation in chess is different, and you have to be willing to play according to the peculiarities of the position you find yourself in. So sometimes these positions require original thought. So a good thing about knight a3 here is the bishop is blocked, so it's not going to get exchanged off there. And it gives me a way to recapture the c-pawn, and it stops him from playing b5 to support the c-pawn. So knight a3 to c4 here is pretty much unstoppable, and then the knight has a good position from that square. It might get kicked by b5 later, but then it can come to a central square. So, and it attacks his bishop here. So that would have been the way to play this. After queen a4, then black has some interesting opportunities here. I guess I'm not going to talk about all the different ways he could have played it. Basically, black is slightly better through this section. And we're going to scoot ahead here. I think we're making sort of logical moves. He's attacking my king before I've had a chance to castle, and I'm hurrying to try and get castled and get out of the center since it's kind of open. And we're both trying to develop our pieces. And here we go. This is getting close to the next point I wanted to look at. Bishop b4 check. Yeah, so he's done a logical thing here. He's kicked the queen around. He's put pressure on my isolated pawn here. And bishop b4 check seems to be continuing this strategy. When I bring my knight out, it's going to be pinned. But actually, black has a really strong move right here. And it's kind of subtle. So I want to leave this position on the board for a while and put it out there as a tactical quiz. What would be a good move for black at this point? So if you want to think about this some more, I recommend pausing the video, because I think this does require some thought, and it's an interesting kind of, it's not an immediate tactic, but it's an interesting sequence here that starts with kind of a subtle move. So pause the video, think about it some, and then when you're ready, you can restart it. But I'm going to show you the answer now. So the move here, which I did not think of during the game, my opponent didn't think of, and even now it's a little bit tricky to see. It's this move, knight a6. So let's look at this as a variation. Kind of funny, because I had this earlier move, knight a3, which would have been good for me, and I didn't play it. And now he has this knight a6 move, which is good for him, and he didn't play it. So there's two threats in this move, which is why it's a powerful move. The first threat is the knight can come here to b4 and then to c2. And this fork on c2 is pretty devastating. It's hitting the rook, the king, and the queen. And it's tricky for me to get out of the way of all of these threats. The rook, for example, is in the corner and can't move until the knight gets out of there, for example. So if I try, let's go forward. If I try moving the queen, he plays knight a6. I see this threat coming, and I try moving the queen. He can play here anyway because it's protected by the bishop. And now he's still coming to this square. I can't really stop it. Let's see, what could I try here? Let's turn on the engine for a second. Make sure I don't mess this up. So computer says I should just castle, and then his knight is going to take on d5, and he's going to pick up the pawn. Yeah, I guess that's the point. He's going to win that pawn anyway. So I've defended against this threat, but he's taking the pawn. I was wondering if I play here also. It's a way of defending this square, but knight e4 is a strong move. Okay, coming in and attacking my queen. So anyway, this knight a6 move was pretty strong. But what about the second threat? What is, just besides this idea of coming to b4, forking the pawn and also making this threat of this giant fork of queen, king, and rook? I could try and block it simply by playing a3 here. So now he can't come to the square. And now you see the second threat is putting the bishop to c5. This chases my queen out of the way and allows him to double attack this bishop here. And this bishop is already pinned by the rook, and having the bishop on that as well is going to be pretty bad for my position. So let's turn the engine off. Backing up to this position. So the killer move, knight a6. He missed it here. Fortunately for me. Okay, so the game goes on. Both sides are making logical moves. And black has an advantage through all of this. He's managed to get his pawn back. I gave him a pawn in the beginning. I won it back, but now he's won the central pawn, taking advantage of the pin. I castled on pin, but he can just take my knight at that point. So he's trying to create some pressure along this diagonal. But I have some counter threats too. Like I say, I can move the knight out of the way and attack back along that diagonal. So I get my rook out. He goes there. try to attack his knight over here. I'm thinking of messing up his king side. And I play rook d4, he goes knight bd7. We're getting close to the point I want to look at. Yeah, this is the position. So here, this move he made, knight e5, was actually a mistake. And how do I best refute this move? Well, the answer is I can take this knight. And now, if he takes my knight, I can throw in this intermezzo, rook to d6, forcing the queen to move, and then I can pick up a bishop and I'm a whole piece up. So basically, I can win a piece here. Now, he doesn't have to take the knight. In fact, his best move is probably to take here. I take back, and then he can try grabbing. But I can go here attacking his queen, and then here with my queen. And this is a pretty nasty attack too. My queen is attacking his rook along this diagonal, and I'm putting tremendous pressure on this f6 square here. So he's going to have to move his rook out of the way of this attack or defend it in some way, and then I'll just be able to grab here and win at least a pawn and mess up his king side. We'll get kind of a position similar to the game. So really I can just take that knight. I didn't see that entirely. I saw some of those ideas, but I missed the big thing I missed was the idea of chasing the queen away so this bishop would be undefended. It's a nice thing to think about because that comes in the middle of a sequence, right? I'm taking, he's taking, and then instead of just taking, I make a threat on his queen, chase it away, and then take the bishop. So good idea. So I played this move, rook d6, chasing the queen immediately. He goes queen c5. Here I could take the knight again, and it's even stronger now. But I decided to take on f6, not as good a move. And now he plays knight takes f3 check, good move, and I take back. And now his move bishop takes f3 is actually a mistake. So what should he play here? I'll give you, this is another tactical quiz, I'll give you guys a few seconds to think about this. And it's a similar kind of tactic to what we looked at just recently, that's a clue. And if you want more time to think about this one, pause the video. Okay, I'm going to tell you. The idea here is to push a pawn forward. And my queen doesn't have a square it can go to that defends the bishop. All these squares along this row here are covered by pawns, and that one's covered by the rook. And so as the queen drops back straight or along this diagonal, they can't get to a position that defends this bishop. So the bishop is just hanging after he pushes a pawn. So he was playing real well, and he had me on the ropes here, but he missed the b4 shot. But I missed shots too, so I think both of us were not seeing the full picture here, which is always a danger in the Blitz game. Sometimes you need to pause and take time to calculate these things out. Oops, ran ahead too far. Let's get back to where we were. Bishop takes f3. So I take here, and now I've got the position that I was going for when I played that rook d6 move. I was trying to get pressure on this diagonal. He's going to have to take back, and then I can take here. And 25. Yeah, move 25. There's a much better way to play this once again. I think I'll just tell you it's a similar concept. Play the rook up first. Don't just grab that pawn right away. Play the rook up first. Chase the queen to a bad square. It really has no squares to go to over here to protect the king. It's going to be kicked back to a square like b4. Then grab here with the queen. And now there's just terrible threats. The rook can come over here. The queen is threatening to go in the corner here and mate. And white is going to win the game. Basically, black can't stop the attack without giving up significant material. So that's the move. When you're in this situation here, you don't just grab the pawn right away. No, you bring your rook forward, bringing even more force in. It's one of those moves you don't always think about because you're sometimes afraid to leave the back rank uncovered. You have to make sure when you play this that there's no check here that's going to destroy you, but the king can just come to this square on g2, so he's going to be safe. Okay, so this is how it was played. I still have an advantage here. He plays queen e7. I line my rooks up, and we're getting to the last point here where I play this queen d4 move, thinking this was a strong move, but basically this gives away the last of my advantage. I should probably still be thinking about the idea of lifting a rook and coming over this way and maybe attacking some of the loose pawns here. Although actually the computer says by this point my best bet is just to exchange rooks and just play with the queens. That would be a long game. So, but the idea I had was this queen d4 makes two threats. The queen is threatening to go in the corner here and just deliver checkmate. And also I've got three pieces lined up this way, attacking a rook which is only defended twice. So I'm threatening to win a rook and I'm threatening to checkmate. I thought it was pretty strong. But there is a defense, and as I was thinking about it and watching it as my opponent was thinking about it, I realized what the defense was, and he found it as well during the game. Queen takes d6, and what this does, it gets rid of the threat on this rook back here, and it gets rid of the mating threat. Now if I go to check, the king can come out. Here, I'll just play this out as a variation. Queen goes here, check. The king only has one move. Now I need to really recapture the queen in order to get my material back because I'm down a whole rook at this point. But my queen is under attack, so if I take his queen, he's going to take my queen. He'll have two rooks. And if I move my queen away, there's no place I can move to with check. I could try, as my only last hope, my rook here with check. But I'm just a rook down in this position. I can exchange, but I'm still going to be a rook down. So my great double attack that I thought I had from queen d4 was just not there at all because of this one defensive move. You know, chess is a very specific game. You can't rely on general principles. You have to calculate the variations. So he found that. Good move, Alex. And so I have to exchange on d6. Really, there's no other move at this point. And we get into this rook endgame. So the rook endgame is rook and pawns. He's got an advantage here, and he can press for a win for a long time. But a lot of rook and pawn endgames are drawn, so I didn't give up at this point. And in fact, I reached a point later where I could have drawn. First thing is I have to stop these pawns. They're the biggest threat. So I get my king and my rook over here. And when he takes that pawn and I get rid of this pawn, I know that he's going to capture my last pawn over here, but this is a situation which is actually drawish. My king is in good position. Yeah, so this should be a draw, and my rook is in front of the pawns. Might be better off behind them, but basically my king is in position to stop these two pawns from advancing, and it turns out that it's just very hard to advance with the rook pawn and the bishop pawn when they're on the same side of the board against the king and rook. So this is a well-known draw. But I would lose this. So I play correctly at first. I get my king in front, and then I get my rook around to the side where it can attack and check and harass the king and pawns generally. And then when the pawns come forward, I can put my rook behind them and harass from behind. So all this is okay. That's following the right general strategy. And starting here, I'm going to turn the engine on. You'll see how I managed to lose this. Now, you have to take the engine readings with a grain of salt. If it shows an advantage to black, it's just because black has more material. Unless this number goes to like 4 or 5, the computer is not finding a way to queen those pawns, which is the main thing that's going to cause the evaluation to change and to enable black to win this game. He can't win this game unless he can queen one of those pawns or win my rook. And if the computer finds a way to do that, you'll see this number jump to around 5. So we're just kind of wasting time here almost. I'm staying behind rook and harassing him. Eventually he finds a way to push the pawns forward. But there's a cost, and he has to give up the h-pawn. And so now this again should be drawish, but it's a little trickier now because my king is out of position. For an ideal draw, my king really needs to be in front of the pawn and the rook behind or to the side. Then that's a drawing position. So I'm trying to get my king down there, and you'll see, let's see, was that a significant shift? It says king f2 would be a good way to play for a win. King f2, rook b8. Maybe, yeah, it's a little bit tricky here. Did I have a way of preventing king f2? Yeah, it says I should try rook b8 here. Coming around this way. The idea being able to check from the side, I guess. Yeah, I wasn't sure how to play this one with my king on the side. So let's look forward. He lets me out, lets me get in front of the pawn here. A few more moves. And this should be a draw. And coming up is my big mistake. He's on the 4th rank, and the idea with the 3rd rank defense is you put your rook here, and the king can't go forward, and when he pushes the pawn forward, then you drop back and check his king from behind. And you'll see how I did it wrong. I left my rook on the 4th rank one move too long. This was my last chance. And rook a3, picked out by the computer as a top move, is the way to hold this position. Play rook a3, and now if he advances the pawn, drop the rook back, doesn't matter, a7, a8. And if the king tries to come forward, you can just check. And the point is the king can't get in front of the pawn anymore, so he has no way of escaping the checks. So that's the way to win this. He can try other moves. Yeah, he can try rook h2. Just says hold the position. Just going back and forth. He checks me, go up here. Oh, that was 2 mistakes. Clicking too quick. So there's just no way for black to make progress in this position. Again, if the king comes forward threatening to mate me, that's the key thing. Then the rook comes over and checks the king. So the way I played it, we back up. I played in this position, instead of playing rook a3, I played rook c4. And now he's just winning because he can come forward with the king, which he does, king g3. And it's unstoppable at this point. I try to go to the 3rd rank, but it's too late. And I didn't realize that. I should have remembered that from my chess lessons. But that's an important thing for you. You got to go to the 3rd rank when neither the rook, the king, nor the pawn is on the 3rd rank. You have to beat them to it. When they beat you to it, the king goes forward. It's too late to come to the 3rd rank. And he's coming forward, and he does a nice job of finishing me off. This is threatening checkmate. If I run away, he'll check. I have to go to this square. I'll show you. If I try to run away from the checkmate this way, then he can check, take the king, take the rook, and then now this will queen, and he'll just win. So after rook h2, I tried going towards the rook, but now he can play the pawn forward, check, and I have no moves but there, and now he checks me away, and I resigned at this point. So anyway, great game, Alex, and that's a little endgame lesson for everybody. I should have been able to hold that, and of course we both had some chances in the middle game, so interesting game, a lot of back and forth. I think next time I'll try and sharpen up my tactics before I play, and see you guys next time. And leave any comments you have in the section below. Thanks, bye.